I was reading here in Lamentations today in chapter 1, in the verses right here, verses 20 through 22. You can turn to your own Bibles and read that if you like. I may try to read it here in a minute, but I just want to talk today about dealing with trauma, stress, and I have some close personal friends that's dealt with post-traumatic stress disorder. And if you went through any kind of very traumatic events in your life, regardless of what they may be or why they came into your life, nevertheless you're dealing with trauma. Jeremiah in the book of Lamentations, he was grieved. That whole book was dedicated to just a grieving process over his people and the shape that they were in. And you can just read it for yourself there in the book of Lamentations to get the whole story. But, you know, if you turn to God's Word, like I said in another video, this is an entire book dedicated to this. I just know some people are going through some hard times and through some trauma. And dealing with it has become a very long, drawn-out process. In this day and age in which we live, in the world we live here in America, where Americans as a whole, generally speaking, a lot of Christians have really just turned their backs against God. We're trying to take God at everything, water down His Word, you name it, and people have done it. And this is just a wicked world we live in, and it reminds me a lot of the shape that Jerusalem was in the book of Lamentations. And Jeremiah just grieved over his people because they turned their hearts so against the Lord, and they were paying some serious consequences. You may be looking at your own life as a Christian and think, well, I really don't see anything that I have done to bring it on. So we personally may have not brought on some of the grief that we're going through in and of our own selves, but maybe the world we're living in as a whole has just turned its back against God so much that, you know, maybe this world that we're living in just we don't experience those, the closeness to God that maybe they had at different points in this world when there was revival sparking across the nation and people was turning their hearts towards the Lord so much. But I think we live in just such a grievous world as a whole that a lot of people just really experiencing a lot of it. Just as a result of the world we're living in. So even the Christians that are trying to live for the Lord really are going through a lot of struggles, and I know a lot of them just went through some just downright traumatic experiences. And that's why I just wanted to talk about this today, because I just know so many people going through it. But this subject of trauma is just and grief, anything in that sort of category. If you're there, just look at this example here. And like I said, an entire book dedicated to it. A lot of the Psalms, David went through a lot of traumatic experiences with his enemies. You may have a situation where your enemies have just turned against you. They delight to see you in trouble, and they relish in it. And, you know, there's a lot of those types of people in this world. Unfortunately, there's a lot of that type of wickedness going on. You know, even in churches, amongst Christians or people that claim to be Christians, just attack each other and just rip each other to pieces. It's just not good, you know. And what God put us here for is to love Him, first of all, to serve Him, and secondly, to love each other and serve each other. That's what we're put here for. And when you lose sight of that very thing, you know, we hear a lot about love, but I think we lose sight of what it really means. Love is giving of yourself, giving up of yourself, letting go of some of your selfish ways and thinking about somebody else. And there's joy in that. There's peace in that. And when you're giving love freely to people without thinking of yourself first, God just gives you some special blessings. He doesn't always give you the material blessings, and that's not really, I don't think somebody truly loves somebody's even after that stuff. I think that when you delight in seeing other people do well, and you delight in helping people, God gives you joy in that. So if you are dealing with a situation where you're going through trauma, and you just are seeking to get some healing from it, I think one of the best ways to heal from trauma is to focus on other people. So it's not to say that you're going to forget what's happened to you. It's not to say that it's going to make the problem go away necessarily, or the healing process speed up, but it does sort of help when you start focusing on what can I do for somebody today. what can I do for the Lord today? What would please Him? And a lot of times, if you're trying to help somebody that's less fortunate than you, or you're trying to do good for somebody, or you're just praying for somebody, maybe you're not positioned to be able to even help, but you can pray for them. Just taking time out of your day to just think about the things of the Lord, and think about people, and to love people, just speak an encouraging word to somebody. Those things will just spark that love, that joy, that peace in your heart. It will flourish it. And then that helps sort of override a lot of the trauma. It doesn't necessarily take it all away, and it won't take it away in 5 seconds or anything like that, but it helps the healing process, I think, a lot. So if there's any way, I think one of the keys to healing from trauma is to just dive into helping other people and just pouring that love out, because that's the best way to fight against our enemy, who is Satan. You know, he is our enemy, and he has people on here that does his work, and they're wicked and they're evil. And the best way to fight against that type of situation is to just do good and return good. And that really, fights the battle better than anything you could do, because when you try to do anything in vengeance or anything in spite, it never works good, because God says that vengeance is His. So, anyway, long story short, to just get to the point, is healing from trauma is doing something to take the focus off yourself and on Jesus Christ or somebody else just for a moment in time. Don't be afraid to go through the grieving process either. You are going to have to take the time to grieve. You're going to have to face that you got to grieve. You go through the grieving process, but don't stay in the grieving process either. Get out of the grieving process long enough to put your mind somewhere else, and I think that's key to a lot of healing. So, if you're listening to this today and you're in that situation, just take comfort in God's Word. Take comfort in who Jesus is, and know that love, joy, and peace are all very real things, and you can have them and you can possess them. And so, don't forget about that. And just, if you want somebody to relate to you, if you don't even know anybody that can relate to you, pick you up a King James Bible, turn to the book of Lamentations, and read what Jeremiah wrote. That guy went through it. So, that just seems to suit a lot of, it just falls in line with some of the situations I've heard people tell me about. So, here you go. I hope this has helped you today, been a blessing to somebody, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. God bless.